Well, we all know death, okay? You may not have a very personal, connection with death because, you may not be exposed to it too much. There's a way nowadays where you can actually live a life where you're not too exposed to death, but at some point in your life, if you live a long enough life, unless if it's just kept really fucking short, but as long as you live enough time, you live for enough time, there will come a time in which you will experience the death of somebody that is close to you. A loved one maybe, and I know it's kind of a taboo topic. We don't really like talking about it. We like to kind of shy away from it and ignore it for as long as we have to because, hey, it's going to happen someday. Let me deal with it then. Let me not deal with it now. Let me have fun now and try to not think about that. Let me have fun while it's not there and it hasn't, personally, impacted me in a way, right? And I'll worry about it when it comes. That's usually how most people are, and that's probably the best way to really go about it. There's no point in worrying too much or becoming super scared or having anxiety or being stressed out about this stuff because it is something that is always going to kind of be out of your control most of the time, unless if it's suicide. But then at that point, I think, being born makes you eligible to die. It's kind of a depressing thing to say, but it's the truth, okay? Depressing. Well, I guess, yeah, we personalized death. We even gave it a little, mascot. We gave it the Grim Reaper. So, it's something that we are all very familiar with and we all deal with at some point or another. Until we don't, because we get desynchronized, right? If you play Assassin's Creed, you know my reference there, right? The universe stops playing us, stops going through our memories. The memories of me, I'm Luis Martinez, right? The universe will at some point stop going through my memories, stop creating memories, going through them. I will at some day die. So let's see what this video is about. It's just titled Death. I don't know. But it's also sponsored by Finimize.
Finance and Investing Insights app, Finimize. Use the link in the description. Energy Flood. Receive a 7-day free trial and 40% off.
Shouts out Finimize.
Matter and energy flooded out. Time and space unfolded. Stars, planets, and cosmological unions formed. The journey of the universe began. After billions and billions of chaotic but lifeless years passed, suddenly, from the sea of boiling cosmic soup, life bubbled up to the surface. And then, out from the froth, eventually, complex consciousness emerged.
People don't always call it soup. It might be a little problematic to call it a soup. Some people say, because some people see it like some systems in the universe may purposefully be tried. Like a soup is very random. It's kind of just like a mixture of shit, just floating around doing whatever. I'm soup. But really, some people say there is sort of an intentional, constant like systems building upon each other, perpetuating even more and more complex systems, which are more complex than any individual part that makes up the system, right? Like, that is emergence, right? Things that, when they come together, they can make a whole that is much greater than the individual sum of its individual parts, And some of that, they say, is kind of more intentional. They say it's like, it almost seems like it has a pathway. It might be gearing towards something is the kind of questions that can come about when you discover some of this stuff. You ask, is it going towards something? Is it trying to do something? Because it may not be as random as we sometimes think it is, or we might be completely headed in the wrong direction with that, and it might just be completely soup. I don't know. Who knows?
Feelings, thoughts, and the experiences of what it was like to be something in the universe were had. Following a sequence of trial and error, push and pull, survival and extinction, like a baby opening its eyes for the first time, one of the earliest conscious species, known as Homo neanderthalensis, awoke to find itself as something somewhere in this strange, unknown place.
Do we know
on a small sea stack on the shore of a body of land, an especially curious and intelligent Neanderthal that went by the name of Primo sat next to one of his friends named Saw. The two looked up at the night sky as the darkness of the night slowly turned to dawn, the remaining stars still dripping down into the ocean beneath. Primo looked over to Saw, and in a crude, limited language, he asked something that translated loosely into, "What is this?" "What do you mean? What is what?" Saw replied, "This place, us. Why are we here? What is the purpose? What is our purpose?" Saw remained quiet for a moment, looking out at the cosmos, veiled by distance and time.
Everybody's asked
Well,
that
this whole
question.
place was made for us, obviously. There are things to eat and drink and play with, a home to live in. The sky warms and cools us when we need it. It gives us everything we need. Something has obviously made this for us. The creators are watching over us. They are making sure we are okay, and they know why we are here. The point is about us. We just have to follow them and do what they want.
Who's they?
The two sat quietly as the sunrise.
You give the title to, you give they to something, like you're. What is it? It's like a fundamental attribution. You're giving something in the universe the attribution of they, right? You're giving it that characteristic of they. Who's they? The sun. The universe as a whole, right? Something that you cannot see.
Began and the night ended.
But it does easily seem that way.
Hundreds
doesn't
of thousands of
it? That
years
it's
would
made
go
for
by.
us.
Consciousness grew and matured as it began to understand more and more about its surroundings, how to make use of its surroundings, how to integrate with it, how to survive and maintain independence within it. Civilization developed and spread out across the planet, and a new species had now emerged, known as Homo sapiens. Two young humans named Mara and Felix sat on the porch of Felix's family's house in the countryside. Together they looked up at the night sky, covered by a blanket of ominous clouds, backlit by the moon. The two talked about various aspects of each other's lives, trying to make sense of and connect over it all. At some point, Mara asked, "What do you think the point of everything is? The endless generations churning through, the difficulty of trying to become someone, having to endure and cope with the evil and sin of the world, the useless fighting and greed? For what? What's it all for? Why do we even keep going?" Felix thought to himself for a moment, still looking up at the low-hanging night sky. Then he said, "I believe God wants us to be happy as possible, and to experience as much pleasure as possible, to revel in the gifts of God as a means toward moral goodness and everlasting blessing. The point of life is hedonism, to make the most of it, to experience and savor the divine nectars of existence." Mara
Well, you
grunted.
should savor the
but did-
divine nectars of existence, but you have to know what divine nectar really is, because divine nectar may not be just objective, rigid, description. It might be very subjective what divine nectar is. Divine nectar could be anything. Divine nectar could be me sitting in my bed. Other people might think divine nectar is driving around Lamborghinis with a hot chick. Nectar is very different. But whatever it is to you, you're savoring it. It's probably some of the best advice ever given. And I don't think anybody could really, make an argument against that, unless if you're just somebody that likes pain and thinks that suffering is where it's all at, and there's people that do that. But hedonists are like the people that think it's all about pleasure, right? Pleasure this, pleasure that. But also pleasure is kind of loose term there, because it's not all just about sensory pleasure. He mentioned morality and being good to God and stuff like that. And I like how everybody comes across this question, because you use your ability to reason and you kind of put that up against the whole of the universe, right? Something that seems like you're kind of prodding a little bit. You're not really supposed to be allowed to ask that question, because it doesn't really make sense. It seems like you got to ask a question before that. It just seems too broad. It just seems like I'd be asking, what is... Let me think of a really broad question. What is a thing? Why do things thing? That's kind of like a similar question, right? It's like, what are things? It just seems very broad, And you should be asking, how can I make life meaningful? I feel, If you asked me that question now, I would tell you, you're asking the wrong question. I would tell you, you need to be asking more of a question of like, how can I make life meaningful, instead of hoping to... Of course, we all want to inquire about and ask people what they think, in case, maybe they have found something about the world that we just don't have, and we can learn it from them, and maybe that we'll get a new revelation that will maybe make sense to it all, And that's what we're all hoping for, some sort of clarity, some sort of closure, some sort of simple way of explaining the universe in a way that makes sense to us, in a way that maybe will line up with the rest of our worldview, and it will all form this cohesive picture of the world, and it'll all come together and go, oh man, we'll have a worldview that's just right, and we're hoping that maybe asking somebody what they think can give us some insight, but really, you should be asking yourself, should. Maybe that's not the word I should be, but you might want to ask yourself instead, because I think that holds more value and that's more useful to people, is to ask, how can I make life meaningful? It's also like asking, how do I find my soulmate? How do I find the love of my life? Is ask a better question, like, how can I be the type of person that will be the best person? How can I be the best type of person for the love of my life? Even if you don't know who they are, how can I be the type of person that can find them? How can I be the type of person that is worthy of a love, that is worthy of the person that I idealize and that I feel I deserve, Well, if you feel you deserve, then you probably wouldn't make much of a difference. But the thing is, most people, the love of their life, they don't actually think that they deserve them. They just kind of want it, right? But how can you be deserving of that which you want? I kind of confused that a little bit. And just asking questions like that, I feel, is what I've learned. It's all just linguistics, and it's the way that you make sense of the world with the language that you've been given and you've learned, which is not really built, I feel, to, well, I mean, it's pretty good. It does the job. I can't say that there's anything better. This is what we have, so we have to work with it. Whatever language it is, it's not English. It could be any language, but it's what we have, so we have to work with it. And yeah, that's what happens with your reasoning. This is the limits of reason. You can't know. We're not built to know whatever it is that the universe is trying to do. We're just not. All we are really built to do is to just survive long enough to procreate and have kids and live long enough, and to socialize, because socializing helps us live long enough, and everything else that helps us live long enough to procreate and stuff like that. And that's really what we're here to do, That's what we're built to do.
Didn't say anything further. Millions of
Or at
more
least we
years would
think,
go by.
because
Consciousness
we don't know
continued to
anything.
grow and mature at disorienting rates and in disorienting ways. As it grew older, its independence and responsibility to itself grew heavier. Dramatically new conditions of life would emerge that brought new technologies, new understandings, new structures and frameworks of being. The species known as Homo artificialis would become the latest evolution
Homo
of
Deus?
now technologically advanced consciousness. An artificial by the name of Ansgar sat with one of their higher-ranking comrades, named Aldous, on their exploration cruiser ship, looking out through a large glass window at space floating by and around them. "Where are we even going?" Ansgar asked. "We have been continuing on for so long, but to where? For what? I'm getting tired. Life seems to just be a continuation of the same things over and over, but in different forms. Happiness and pleasures leave as fast as they come. They never last or change anything. I have lost all naivety required for
I
hope
like that.
in the
The ups
fleeting
and downs,
pleasures of
that is
more
really
or new. New
what life
technologies, new understandings, and new ways of life come about, but problems never seem to go away. Misery and pain never seem to go away. And we all die anyway. What's the meaning of it all?" Aldous paused, sternly holding their head forward, looking out the window into the distant star systems they had long since passed. "There is no meaning," Aldous replied. "We all know that. Not any real meaning, at least. The gods abandon us."
Real meaning? What meaning that is inherent? That's just built into the fabric of the universe? No. Why do we expect that? It seems kind of foolish when you think about it. Why do we expect there to just be some inherent meaning that we can just find, that could just be given to us, that could just be like what is it, delegated to us? Here, you're born, here you go. You want the universe to just throw you a meaning, so you don't have to actually put in the effort to look for it. You just want to be thrown a meaning. Man, I am suffering at the age of 15, and I don't know the meaning of my life. And the only way that I can feel like this suffering is, worth it, so that I don't want to fucking kill myself, is if I can find meaning to offset the suffering of life, And so they want to be given the, what is the word for it? The term for it. They want to just be given a at bat, like they just want to be given a pass, a free pass. Like they just want to be I can't think of the term, but you know what I mean. Like, they just want to be saved, really. They want to be saved by the universe because they want the universe to have intrinsic, arbitrary just meaning. So they don't have to actually go and, I guess, create one or look hard for one. They just want it to be there and obvious so that the pain right now, when you do not have meaning, which I cannot even say I know particularly my meaning, but, to offset a lot of the pain that people have, to not kill yourself, meaning is kind of necessary. Because whenever you start questioning things about the universe, one thing that almost naturally comes about because of that questioning these things about the universe is sometimes that question, is living life worth it? Is me staying alive even worth it? And what are the ups and downs? Let me reason through if there is, a good enough reason to kill myself. Let me reason through that. That is kind of just what naturally comes about. And so you need meaning, because meaning allows you to suffer and be okay. You can get through the suffering. You'll be okay. And so you need some responsibility and some meaning to offset that, because life is hard, man. Life is hard. And I know that.
Us a long time ago. There is no one watching out for us, directing us, helping us, or giving us anything. But now, we're free. Our parents have stopped telling us what to do and who we are, and now we're free to do what we want and become who we are. We create our meaning, not in pleasure or happiness, but in meaning itself, for the sake of itself. Pain and loss and suffering, the fact that everything ends and nothing ever permanently relieves us, is the very fuel we use to make our meaning. Fulfill your role and provide your value to the Empire, and acquire as much value in return from it as you can, for yourself and for those you know and are responsible for. Become wealthy and important from and for something that you deem important, and that is enough. Ansgar sat, holding still for a while.
Become wealthy that you deem important for something you deem important.
Billions of years would go by. The stars were beginning to die.
Become great. Become 1% better every day. Do something humble, but do something that is, something. Do something. Become 1% greater every day. And what that means, it may not be very glorious or extravagant. It might be a very small change what you can do in just one day. Like tomorrow, if you're broke and hate your life, you're not going to become a millionaire tomorrow. You're not going to be that great star that you see in the movies tomorrow, So the changes that you can make are very incremental, and they compound, but they're small changes that you may not even see with just, at first glance. They're going to be very small changes, but you have to make them anyway, and you have to do it just for the sake of doing. You have to fucking do something that can make life better by the value structure that you've created, and to the degree that you've done that. As Jordan Peterson said, like, do something that you've deemed worthy by the value structure that you've created. And that is what life is really all about, And the value structure that you've created, sure, it may be influenced by your environment, but your facticity, your transcendence, your whatever, by the information that you input. Sure, we are kind of information processing system, so we don't necessarily create something out of nothing. Everything that we, the value structure that you create may be completely influenced by something outside of yourself, but that's, you can't really do anything about that there. It's just your value structure. Don't question it. Well, maybe not don't question it, but you know what I mean.
Galaxies had spread out completely if they hadn't yet joined or dissolved away. Space was thinning as the universe began its end. Still, however, consciousness continued to survive and had now made it into old age, with one remaining species that descended from the very first beings to awake in the cosmos. A species known as Homo Cenes.
Homo Cenes?
Almost all of the Cenes' ancestors and brethren had long since died away, but the Cenes had survived and become a being that attained a sort of supremacy over their nature, and almost immortality.
So Homo
Deus,
Deus,
on the edge
really?
Of planetary bodies, two Cenes, a commander named Bethan, and the sovereign leader of the entire species named Olam, sat looking out at the remaining stars as they twinkled their final light. We have traveled the entire cosmos. Our species has seen everything there is to see, learned everything there is to know, every law of physics, every rule of reality. We have become basically immortal, but now we end up here, having found nothing in the form of ultimate meaning, and now we're about to die with everything else. What was it all for? B then asked. Olam made
still
an
looking for
expression like
meaning
they
in the
knew
universe?
something, like they had known this answer for a while and had been waiting to be asked. Our purpose, the point of life, of consciousness, is simply to survive and mature so we can make it here. Okay, but for what? B then asked. To
For
create. A brief pause surrounded them. To create what? The universe, Olam answered. I don't understand. Why create the universe again? Why keep everything going if there's no point to it? We won't even be able to personally experience it again, at least not knowingly. But keeping it going is the point. We are the creators and the created. We are the gods we have worshipped and the disciples who God has blessed and smote. Every species and every individual possessed and possesses a role and power to create the universe. The purpose of our existence is to transcend our existence, to continue on. We have gone from newborn to teenager to adult to elder, and now we are at the brink of death, the end of everything. And so, now we must make the end of everything, the beginning of everything, once again. Meaning is found not in doing things for yourself, but in doing things for the whole that you are a part of. Throughout history, we needed to believe in personal reasons to keep us going, but now we need to keep going for reasons that are not personal. In every act of consciousness, we have created the universe.
Yeah, you'll notice there's in the library there is a self-help section. There's not a help others section, right? I thought that's what he's getting at on like a multitude of scales. He's saying, you know, what you do for yourself dies with you, but what you do for others, what you do for the universe, does not say others. What you do for everything, which you are also a part of. But hey, it's not really a personal thing like an ego thing. But hey, it's, you know, you're still a part of it. But hey, it's everything. What you do for everything else, what you do for others, it lives on. You know, what you do for yourself, it just dies with you. You keep looking for all these things that are not really going to satisfy you in life, that won't really matter when you die. That's how a lot of people live their life, and that's why it's always meaningless to them.
And so, we have already been creating it for billions of years. Now, we are just finishing the job. The two sat silently for a moment, and then they returned to their base. During the remainder of the universe, the Scenes created blueprints and processes for building a new universe. Once it was ready and the universe had become darker and darker, its energy began tightening in around them. The remaining celestial bodies exploded and matter narrowed in, stretching and disintegrating their own bodies along with it into a tiny final pinpoint of everything, compressed perfectly and completely. For a moment, there was silence. Then, an explosion. Matter and energy flooded out, time and space unfolded, stars, planets, and cosmological unions formed. The journey of the universe began. After billions and billions of years, from the sea of boiling cosmic soup, life bubbled up to the surface, and then complex consciousness emerged.
He's doing, isn't this the great loop theory? It's not called the great loop theory, but it's like the universal loop theory, that it's just going in a loop and a loop and a loop. And what if consciousness really does come about every single time? Does consciousness go about in every reality? Come about in every dimension? Multiple dimensions?
This video was sponsored by Finimize, an inevitable
That's
part
a
of becoming
long
independent and
advertisement.
building a life for oneself, whether we like it, as well as how they might create potential investment.
Yo, Finimize though, I had that app, but I never used it, man. And I low-key thinking about it, how it sounds, I feel like I should be using it. I feel like I'm lacking right now. What if a landmine takes on him? A few seconds before death, every single cell... Oh no, is it really long? Oof, it's kind of really long. I don't know if I really feel like reading that. Death, birth, death, birth. We long dead long before we were alive, and we didn't mind at all. Nope. We didn't mind death. Come on, dog. I didn't even know I was dead. Oh my god. I'll catch you guys on the next one, man. Take care. Made this one longer, but hey, I wanted to give my thoughts on it as well. Let me know yours. If you made it all the way through to the end, you gotta say something. You have to. Because most of the time, whenever I linger on and I make these much longer than I have to, nobody stays to the end because they probably shouldn't. I'm not mad at it. Okay, I probably wouldn't stay to the end. But like, this kind of just like me giving my thoughts and opinions and me not trying to sound smart, right? Because I know that what I'm saying may sound deep and it may sound, all enlightened and stuff and all knowledgeable, but really all of that is just information that I picked up from other people's findings and from other people's thoughts. It's not all just completely, I invented all of the things I just said. Oh, I found out about it, Like, no, I heard it somewhere, I've read it somewhere, and it just stuck with me. And I'm like, yeah, it seems like that's the most likely thing, right? It seems like that's the most useful way for me to thinking about it. That's like useful, not useful because then you could just lie to yourself and that much be more useful. Saying God exists is useful, but like it's also like that which is at the extent of my reasoning, right? Which is I couldn't really hope to know more. Couldn't really hope to see it in any other way if I'm thinking critically, if I'm thinking scientifically or philosophically, right? Which I'm kind of mediocre at those things anyway. But hey, we're getting there. I'll see you guys on the next one. Stop.